and begin. And there we are. All right, so we are at the Caseload Manager Superuser training. Thank you everyone for taking the time this morning to join us. And as Daniel mentioned, I'll just be going over some basic foundational things to get you started. Orientation, typical workflow, and then I'll leave you with some homework. As I'm going, I want to make sure that you really understand this stuff. And so if there's something that I'm just not explaining very well, please pause, interrupt me whenever you want with questions. Again, I just want to make sure that this is really clear to you. So we've been over the basics of Caseload Manager. It's a system to help you manage your data, your staff, your cases, etc. It's in the cloud, meaning that you and your staff can access it whenever you need. And today we'll be going over some basic features. There are a lot of additional add-on features which I might reference, but we're not going to take the time to go over those add-on advanced features today. We'll be scheduling those trainings later. So this is our complete A to Z plan for training. Today we're just going to be going over the introduction, just getting started, and some casework. But here you can see what your plan is going to look like over the next month or so as we go over configuration and some of those advanced features that I mentioned. So, ta-da! Here we are at the introduction. All right, logging in, I believe everybody has login information at this point. If you have any questions about logging in, please let me know. Your user ID is going to be your email address, and your password is something that was randomly created, but you can always go in and change that in your staff settings. Just so you know, you want your password to be at least 6 characters long, a combination of letters and numbers. All right, so as soon as you log in, you'll see the Caseload Manager home screen, which has 5 main hubs. These hubs are Calendar, ta-da, upper left, Activities, upper right, Cases. Now, cases is where you're going to be spending the majority of your time. So that's really what we're going to be looking at today. But just to orient you to all the different hubs, in the upper right here, we also have mail and reports. Okay, so you guys see those 5 hubs: calendar, activities, cases, mail, and reports. All right, so ta-da, getting started. So we are going to begin in the Cases hub. I'm going to hop out to a live system. And again, if anybody has any questions, please interrupt me and I can go over something, make it a little bit clearer. All right, so right now we're looking at a live version of the Caseload Manager. When you first log in, yours will look pretty similar to this, except you probably won't have as many activities or cases. So you will need to populate your system with cases. So to do that, let's go ahead and walk through an example case. So down here in the Cases Center, I'm going to click this link that says Add New Case. As soon as I do that, a new window pops open. Now, there are some older versions of browsers that will open this in a new tab, or they'll open this window behind the existing window. For most people, that's something that you can change in your settings. If not, it just means the first couple times you use this, you might need to play hide and go seek a little bit with these windows to find out exactly where your browser puts them. That being said, for the majority of people, it will pop up in front just like mine did. Okay, so we are going to schedule a mediation. And let's say that this is a parenting issue. All right. And so now I've entered the basic information. So now I'm kind of on the intake screen for my case. You can see the date initiated is pre-populated. I can enter a case name here. I can enter additional case ID if I need to. And Scrolling down, you just fill out the information you need to. So for instance, referral sources. We'll say that this is a family court intake.
There's a webinar regarding the new thing, unless you want to log in.
Again, you probably won't know all of this information in the beginning, so you'll fill out the information that you know, the information that's relevant for this type of a case, and then we'll come down and fill out the basic information for your participants. Now, I want you to notice something. At the moment, we only really have room for 2 major participants, for the initiating party and responding party. The reason for that is simply because of screen space. We don't want to take up the entire screen with having there be a lot of blank spaces that you might not need. So you can fill out basic information for the first 2 participants, and then as soon as we hit save or add this case, space will pop in for another party. And you'll notice that throughout the system. That's kind of how it's designed. You have places to enter information on the first 2 people. As soon as you hit save, you have places for a third and then a fourth and so on. So if you're saying, oh my gosh, Daniel, we have a 100-person multi-party facilitation, don't worry, the system can handle that. A new space will always pop open. All right. Now, if it's somebody that you've worked with before, you'll find that their name is going to be on your list. And that's very common with attorneys. Rodney Dangerfield, Judge Judy, for instance, great attorney. All right. If we want to enter a new person, you enter their basic information, make sure you grab their email address and phone number. And that's about all you need to get started. So again, what we're doing now is just a basic case intake. And I'm going to pause for a moment. I noticed that a couple other people have joined, so thank you very much. This is the Superuser training. And as we mentioned before you joined, just to block out any background noise, if you could please mute your microphone, that would be very helpful. And if we need to, I can go in and do that. Nope, looks like we're good. Okay, so we'll enter basic party information over here. On the right-hand side, here's some more information about the case. So this might be parents seeking a parenting plan, for instance. Just basic case information. We'll select the status. And as you notice, this is roughly designed so that it's going from start to finish. So that in the beginning, we're contacting the initiating party, and then as we go down, the different statuses available will reflect that. So in the beginning, we're just contacting the initiating party. Again, as you're going through, you select the different fields that you need. I'll spend more time on this in a minute. But for now, I just want to get this case added. So I'm just doing the very basic information that I need. I'll go ahead and add the case. So that was kind of my case intake. So now, let's say I'm ready to work on a case. So I'm going to go back into it. And now, let's say I want to add some more people to this case. And I want to go ahead and assign this case to a mediator. So depending on how you have your staff set up, and we'll go look at that again a little bit later in the call, but depending on how you have your staff set up, that determines how much access they have to Caseload Manager when they first log in. What some people do is they have their staff set up more like observers, meaning they can log into the system and they can see basic case information, but they can't edit anything. Other people, maybe you've had mediators on staff for a while, they give their mediators full access so that they're able to log in, see all of their cases, and they're able to edit information. This is something that you can change on a person-by-person basis. You can change it on a field basis as well. So an example of that is maybe you want to give your mediators access to this case, but you don't want them to see things like this, like the pay rate and the balance due. So in the background, I'm just going to ask you to begin thinking about how exactly you want to set this up, how much access you want to give your mediators, and as you begin looking at the different fields or maybe add fields for your own system, are there certain bits of information that you think just isn't appropriate for your mediators to see? So that's just something for you to kind of be massaging in your head in the background. All right,
this is Claire, I'm just going to jump in so that folks know you don't have to give your mediators access to the system. Some of you may choose to do that. You may choose to do it for a certain type of case, like a divorce case if you have consultant or volunteers working on those. In this system, staff is considered your volunteers, your paid staff, even interpreters are all going to be listed as quote staff, even though they have different designations. Any or all of those folks can get access. So I know some folks do not want their mediators in here at all, and that's also fine.
And so I'll show you in a moment how you can go ahead and alert your mediators about upcoming mediations, even to the system. So as an example, let's say I'm assigning Amber as a mediator, and she's a mediator on staff. So she's someone that I have given access to this program. So as soon as she logs on, she'll see this case, she'll see all the relevant calendar items and activities, and she'll be able to log in and maybe update a client's phone number, for instance. So that's the level of access I've given her. But then we've got, what's another good example? I don't want admin. Here we go. All right, I'm as an observer, and so this is someone that I've never given access to the program, and I don't really want her to have access to the program. And so she has limited staff access. So now, just keeping those two things in mind, I'm going to show you the next step, which will be add a calendar item. So that's over here on the right-hand side. And so when Amber logs in, she will be able to see this calendar item. But for Ima, in order for her to see it, I am going to send her an email out as soon as I've scheduled this, meaning she'll never have to log into the program. I'll just send her an alert giving her the relevant details of this mediation. All right, so circling back for a moment, we have just added a new case. I did my intake, I added my participants, I scheduled my mediator, and so now I'm going to schedule my mediation. So let's say we'll schedule that for Thursday, say, there we go. Schedule it for 9:30. I think that'll take about 2 hours. And I could select an individual person if I just wanted to meet with one party separately. But for the moment, I want everyone to be there. So I'm just going to check here to have all parties automatically looped in. Scrolling down a little bit, I'll select the type. And this is going to be an ADR session. I'm going to make sure Amber's included, meaning that when she logs in, she will see this mediation on her calendar. I'll go ahead and schedule it in conference room 1. Status is not completed. And then down here, I'm going to make a couple of notes that I want the parties and the staff to know about. So we'll say session will determine children vacation schedule. Please bring vacation and work, I don't know, and school schedule, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple notes that I want the mediator and the parties to know about. All right, so I've scheduled my session. So now, this is one of my favorite features. That's why I'm spending so much time on it. I really like it. So now coming down, I can send this note to staff, meaning that Amber and Ima will get an email about it. I can send it just to parties, or I can send it to everyone, meaning that all of the participants and all of the staff involved in this will get an email. And I like checking both of these. So it will send a notification out to them as soon as I hit save. And then it's like late afternoon before the meeting that they will get a reminder saying, hey, remember tomorrow morning you have a mediation session. It's at this time. Here are the relevant notes. All right, so as soon as I hit save, then that email is going to go out to my participants and my staff. All right. How are we doing so far? Does anybody have any questions? I'm trying to keep an eye on the little chat feature. I'm not seeing anything, but again, please unmute yourself and interrupt me if there's anything that you want me to spend a little bit more time on. Okay.
And just to orient folks, this is kind of like if you are entering a case managed case where you're working with parties at intake and case management and scheduling a session out into the future. You know, this is just like using the add a session function in DRCMS. We're also going to enter a case just to show you what it's like when a case is already complete, like it came back to you from small claims court and it's the first time someone is entering that information. So we'll also show you the data entry for that.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm scrolling down here on the right-hand side. So I'm still in my edit case screen. This is where I did my intake. I've added my parties. I've added my mediators. I added my calendar item here. And then if I want to, I'm going to click Add Activity so I can add any additional follow-up notes that I need to. This is typically all of the rest of the stuff that happens. Okay. Thank you. I see your question. I'll get right to it. So this is all of the stuff that happens to make your cases go forward. For instance, all the phone calls, the emails, the payments, just the little notes that happen day to day. So we'll call that perfect client follow-up. And I'm going to stick with Amber. Where did Amber go? All right, Amber's hiding. We'll just do Elizabeth for the moment. And I just want to make a note saying parties called and requested that their oldest child attend final mediation session, something like that. Okay, so now we have made a note in the case. And if we want to, we can even do a follow-up calendar item. Schedule that with Elizabeth again. And we'll just leave it at that. I'll say call parties to determine if child can attend session. Okay. So I've just created an activity, logging a phone call and some notes from the phone call. On the right-hand side, I'm scheduling a follow-up calendar item. I'm putting this on Elizabeth's calendar, meaning that when she logs in, she'll get a note about it. And then I can also send a note out to Elizabeth saying, hey, in case you're not logging into Caseload Manager, then I'll send her an email letting her know, hey, Elizabeth, I need you to call the parties so we can decide if this child can attend the final goodbye session. All right. So I'm going to hit save, and now that activity and follow-up calendar item have been added. I just got a note saying that the reminder email was sent out. Okay. So now you can see it instantly updates, which is nice, because if I have other people that are working on this case, then they can get a live view of what's going on. So whenever I add a note, that note is added for everyone that's looking at it. In other words, it's updated in the cloud, so anybody else that's working on this case will instantly see that note. All right, that piece makes sense, right? Okay.
Claire, quick question for you. I've had a couple of people over email and through the chat ask me, some folks haven't received a login yet, so there are some questions about the timing for that, or whether there's some way to check who's received it.
Sure. Good question. I don't know. I know that I did just see an email from Carol with information about logins, and there was a default password. So, I'm going to hold off on answering that, and I think what we'll probably do is just use Caseload Manager to send an invitation email out to everyone. And so if you haven't received login information yet, I believe she's already added everyone and they already have their password set. So you should be receiving that email soon. And we'll go and look at that system in just a moment so that you can see what that email will look like. So, you know, you don't write it off as spam or something. So somebody was just asking, what do you do if you have a client with more than one email address? So I'm going to click on Judge Judy. And you can see as soon as I click on her, then her participant record opens up. So I can make any important notes that I want to here, as well as add a secondary email address. From there, I can go ahead and send her an email. So see this link right here that says send email? As soon as I click on that, then my mail center opens up. And I can go ahead and send whatever relevant emails I want to. Hopefully that answers your question. Again, if you have any more questions, please feel free to interrupt. All right, so as Daniel mentioned, what we're looking at is more of a case managed case, where there are going to be multiple sessions that you schedule out into the future. And as we schedule those, Caseload Manager will keep track of the time for us, which is important, especially if you have volunteers, to be able to track how much time they're putting in, as well as any payments, sessions, balance due, etc. And so now,
actually, Claire, can I, before you close this one, can you open up a party, just so that folks are used to that view?
Yeah.
And if you can kind of enlarge the window a wee bit.
Sure.
So this window, just so folks know, this is the same kind of entry for a party like you do when you enter a party into DRCMS. You can, just as Claire was doing, you can choose the type, whether they're a participant or they're an attorney. And then you could, if you scroll down, you're used to entering some of the demographic information, and that's towards the bottom here. So you've got your date of birth, language, you've got your sex, race, employment, income, all those things that you're used to completing. And, you know, so this is where you enter the demographics. And if you slide all the way down, you can see right now it lists any cases that they were involved in. And what's nice is that they're hot linked that you can then click on the case number and it takes it to you, so that if you had a party who, you know, kind of, you know, might be a landlord or something and you see them regularly, all the cases they're associated with are tied to their record. So just wanting to walk people through, just as you're thinking about, okay, where do I enter party demographics? This is where you enter the party demographics. Perfect.
Thank you. And will you need to do that for small claims types of cases as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll close out of here. So I was just going to show how to close out this type of a case, which will be fairly similar, I believe, to the others. And so let's say we've completed all of our calendar items, we've entered our notes, we'll change the status, we'll enter the date, closed, and then finally, there's this little toggle button up in the upper left where it was open, and I'm going to go ahead and change it now to case closed, and then I will update this case. So, oh, right, we have these required fields. All right,
Yeah, so just so folks know, that's a great example of, we do have some required fields, just like DRCMS had some required fields that needed to be completed out. So this will give you an error message that basically tells you which fields you need to complete that you haven't. So right now on the right-hand column where Claire is, you've got your types and nature. Those are things that your outcomes and process, all those things that you're used to completing for a case. There's some additional items here, and maybe at the Superuser training we can kind of dig into each one of them so that you know what they are. But number of individuals served, amount agreed to, referred to other services, those are all things that you're used to completing when you close out a case in DRCMS. And then at the very bottom, the number of sessions and the total duration, those are the same fields that you're used to in DRCMS. So if you could put a duration in, Claire, I think we should be able to update the case.
Great. Okay. All right, so I filled out all the correct fields, which is perfect. So that means that now I'm able to actually close out the case. And now you're probably saying, hey, Claire, you just added a case. Where did it go? And the reason I'm not seeing it is because of this. So I like to keep my filters that I'm only seeing my open cases, meaning it just keeps the screen more streamlined for me. So if I want to go back and look at any closed cases, I see your question, I'll get to it in just 1 second. So if I want to go back and look at any closed cases, it's really simple. I come down to my Cases hub and I click this filter, and you can see right now it's set to only show open cases. So I can change that, all open, closed, or no. For the moment, I just want to see my closed cases, and I'll expand this so you can see some of the other filters that are available. For instance, if I only wanted to show my cases during a specific month, or if I wanted to look for a participant, then I could enter their name. If I wanted to show all of my cases that were arbitrated, or all of my cases involving arson, for instance, so I can select any one of these filters, and then of course it will update the cases that I'm seeing. But what's nice about this is it's not just updating the cases that I'm looking at, it also means those are the cases that I can then export. So for instance, if I needed to run a quick report and print out all of the cases over the last month involving arson, then I would just hop into my filter where we're at now and set my filters for this last month, set the criminal code to arson, and then it will just show me all of the cases that fit that description. I'll set my filter down at the bottom.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
What if you just want to see one particular case, not just all of your cases, but you had contact with the client and now you just want to find that one case? How you go about that?
Sure. So same idea. We would just hit filter, and then if you have the case number, you could enter it here. If the person doesn't know their case number, but they say that their last name is Alfonso, you can enter it there. And so that's how you would just be able to look for a specific case with a specific piece of information.
Thank you.
All right. And so I see your questions. I'm just about to get to it, I promise. So I have run my filter. I'm looking at the cases I want to now. And then I will hit export if I want to take those cases out of caseload, or I'm sorry, if I want to grab the information from Caseload Manager and put it on my computer. So if I ever wanted to run my own report, for instance, like I was saying, get a quick summary of what arson cases there were over the last month, I would filter for those with this button down here on the bottom right, and then I would export those cases to my computer. From there, we can view it in Microsoft Word or Excel, that's one of the advanced features that we'll go over in person. All right.
Can I quickly jump in, Claire?
Please.
So, and could you scroll down to show the case list real quick?
Yes.
And we'll spend some time probably, you know, for sure at the Superuser training on this. To me, this case list is kind of like your dashboard to let you know what you have to work on. And we'll talk about how we can set this up to be kind of like your next action report for those of you who use that. Mm-hmm. But essentially, these headers where it says ID, case number, case name, status, you can choose which things display in that case list. You can also then choose what to filter and what to include. So you can just show me the cases that are currently open, or just show the cases that are open and assigned to me, or the cases that are opened and assigned to someone else because they're on vacation and I'm covering for them. Or just show me the cases that have a next action of follow-up with clients. So this is a very kind of, I think, a very dynamic part of the database, which lets you kind of see what, you know, what you have next to do and what's still open, and even how urgent a next step is, or what the next due date on something is. So this is this to me is a part of it that I believe will be one of the things that you're interacting with most. And so I know this is just a quick overview to give you an orientation, but we will dig deeper into making that useful for you and customizing it for your purposes.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so somebody was just asking about when we log in, are we just viewing our case list or everyone's? And so that's a very good question, because the answer is it really depends on your access level. And since I believe all of you are admins, then you will, when you log in, you'll be able to see everything. So see this display at the top where it says all staff and rooms? If I click on that, I can see everything. I can see what every single staff member is doing, every case that every mediator has been assigned to, everything on the calendar. And sometimes that's really useful. But sometimes I just want to log in as myself. So then I would change the display. So then it will just show me my calendar, my activities, I mean, the cases that I'm involved in. And again, that's because I'm logging in as a super user, as an admin. So I have that option to see everything. If you allow your mediators to log in, then you'll probably give them limited access. So when they log in, their only option is to see their stuff. They won't be able to see any other cases that they're not involved in. They won't be able to see anyone else's calendar or any participants that aren't involved in their cases. So, so the long answer to your question is, when you log in, you see what you have access to see. And if you're an admin, you can change that. But if you're just a normal mediator or a volunteer, an observer, you don't have the option to see anything other than your stuff, what you've been allowed to see. Okay, so Daniel was mentioning the ability to use this case list as your next action list. So a moment ago, I changed my filter to just see my closed cases. I'm going to go back and change that now. I'm clicking filter again, and I'm going to change my display to just show my open cases. All right, we'll set the filter. There we go. And so I've changed the filter, meaning that I've changed what cases I want to see. But now, as he was mentioning, I want to change what information I want to see about those cases. So, so what I'm going to be changing now are these headers. So see right here, ID, case number, case name, etc. You can change this for yourself. So whenever you log in, the system will remember what your preferences are, and it will change it for yourself. So that's important because everybody in your office probably wants to see something slightly different. The billing department wants to know about time spent, hours, etc. Your case administrator probably wants to know what the next action is. So everybody can really personalize this so that when you log in, the information that's relevant to you is the first thing you see. All right, so I've built it up. Now let me show you how to do it. All right, so popping over here, I'm in the Cases Hub. We looked at filter a moment ago, and good question. So somebody was asking why I'm hitting refresh. Normally I don't have to. Simply right now when I'm in Zoom, I can't hit the close button because the Zoom control is covering it. It's frustrating. Normally when you hit close, it automatically refreshes for you. And so you should not have to manually refresh your screen. It should be doing that for you. All right, so thank you. All right, so again, we're hopping over here to filter. That's what we looked at a moment ago to make sure we're looking at the right cases. Now we're going to go to select fields, so we're seeing the right information for those cases. All right, so this list is everything that's associated with your cases. You can see it's a lot. We have a lot of fields that are added here. And just to give you a little teaser of what's to come in the face-to-face training, you might also decide to add a few fields just for your center, meaning these are not the fields that came pre-installed with your system, but these are fields that you want to track for your office. And that information probably, depending on how you set it up, that information probably won't be flowing into the state's reports, but it's just something that you want to track. For instance, if, let's say parking is a really big deal for your office, and you need to make sure that everybody has been sent a parking pass before they arrive, then you can just add a little checkbox down here at the bottom that says, has parking pass been sent? And so then it's a little checkbox that your case manager can look at and know if he has to send a parking pass. That's not something that Daniel or anybody else needs to know, but it's something that is important for your office to track. So those are additional fields that you can add that are just for your office. And so those will show up in this screen too. So you can select what fields you want to include, and those can be the fields that came with your system or the fields that you have since added. Again, that's kind of an advanced thing, so we'll spend some more time talking about that in detail in the face-to-face training. So we can really talk through how you can add fields correctly to make sure they're showing up in reports if you want them to, or they're not showing up in reports if you don't want them to. So hopefully I've gotten you excited about the face-to-face training and I haven't overwhelmed you with too much information. All right, so well, right now we are trying to decide what information we want to display. So case ID, yeah, that's important. Case number, not important. Open or closed, I don't care about that because I have my filter set to only show my open cases anyway. But I do want to know the case name, the case status, what it's waiting for, and I want to know the case type. All right, and that's the main information that I care about right now. So I'll hit update. I'll hit close, and so this time I was able to see that close feature, so you can see it refreshed for me. And so now these headers have refreshed. So ID, case name, status, waiting for mediators, etc. So the status is going to let us know what's going on with the case. And then if there's information that it's waiting for, such as the next action, that's where I would see it. So I'm going to click on this, and let's add some waiting for information. I don't know. Waiting for, let's say waiting for confidentiality agreement to be sent. All right. And now you'll notice every time I type something in, I need to hit update case. We've tried to sprinkle that button in multiple places around this screen. Update case, just to really remind you, hey, you need to update the case. Because it is possible to close out of here, and you'll get a little warning, but it's easy to ignore that. It's possible to close out of here without saving your information, and we all know that that's awful. If you're taking the time to type something in, you want to make sure that information's saved. So make sure you update the case. Then we'll hit close, screen refreshes. And so now on my dashboard, I can see what status of the case and what is it waiting for. Once you start to get a lot of cases in here, then you'll probably want to begin sorting. So I can sort by status if I want to. I can sort by case type. So whatever field you have selected here, you can sort, and then it will either sort either obviously alphabetically or numerically, depending on what type of a field it is. Okay, so we've just gone over a bunch of information. We looked at how to add a case, how to conduct the basic intake, so add parties, add your mediators, add calendar items, add activities, and then close out a case. So that's walking through a case from start to finish. We've also looked at how to change your dashboard here so that you can have your status and your waiting for information readily available. And so the final thing that I was going to do was talk about adding a like a small claims type of a case. So does that sound good, or do we have any other questions before I go forward? Oh, hold on, I think I see one coming in.
While that's coming in, can I address quickly a couple that are in the chat that we haven't quite gotten to? Will was asking, are durations still cumulative or per session? And for us, that'll be cumulative for the case. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. We got feedback from folks that for cases that are coming in complete, where sessions have happened but weren't scheduled out into the future, that they liked the old system in that you could just enter the cumulative number and it made data entry faster. So we've given you that option to do that. So that's still cumulative for the case. And then looks like Julie's asked kind of, if we have multiple small claims cases in court, do we need all the demographic info to be entered? And the standard hasn't changed on that. We very much want demographic information about parties. That's important reporting for us and kind of assessment for you all in terms of meeting community needs. So our hope is that for as many cases as are possible, especially those that are mediated, that we have demographic information entered for parties.
Thank you. So the next question is, what's the limit on the number of fields you can use? And there's not so much a limit. So there's two ways I can answer that question. First, you could be talking about this display here where I have my ID, case name, status, etc. And again, it's not that there's a limit, it's that A, it starts to get pretty bulky and confusing if you have too many fields, and B, it does start to slow things down, simply because we want to keep this screen moving pretty quickly and very light. So I only keep my most important information on here. If you have every field added and it's showing all of your cases from now through forever, it's just going to slow things down because it takes longer for that screen to refresh. So I do advise keeping your filter so that it's only showing open cases. I usually add a filter to my activities as well to only show like the last 30 days. Again, it keeps your screen a little bit faster. So that's the first way to answer your question on how many fields can you use. The second answer is, I don't even really want to go into this too much right now. Mainly, as you're adding your custom cases, which we'll talk about in the face-to-face meeting, you can add as many as you like, but you can only filter on the first 60, which is a pretty big number. If you're running a filter on more than 60 fields, then your brain can handle more complex equations than mine can, because that's a lot of filtering. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so that's probably a question we should answer now, Daniel. Is the training for all staff going to be very basic, and when should they start showing the system to other staff? Daniel, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Yep. So good question, Shannon. I would say that the training that you're getting today is probably pretty comparable to what folks will get in that first webinar training. Our kind of impression is that the best time to expose, the first exposure to staff should happen at that point. Our goal right now is what we found. We had a tester group of about 6 centers that helped us test a previous version of this. And what we kind of discovered through that process was it was really helpful for people to have a full orientation before they got into the system. The system has a lot of components, and without just a very basic roadmap, it got confusing for some folks. So our advice is for you to kind of get as much facility as you can during this next week and at the Superuser training for sure, so that when it comes to the training time, they're getting a very basic overview. Everything that we shared during that overview, you've already heard and understand, and then you'll be ready to answer questions for them as they come up. I wouldn't get them in the system prior to that training. Does that answer the question, Shannon?
Yes, that answers the question.
Can the orientation?
Thanks.
Oh no, so those are stuck where they're at. So Will is asking if the calendar, the activities, etc., if those hubs can be moved around. And nope, a lot of it is configurable, but that's one thing that you're stuck with. If you want, you've got these expandable windows to this little square that's in the upper right of each center. So you can expand that if you wanted to make like a calendar or the activities a full screen, but that's your only option there. You can't move it around. Okay. All right. So now,
I have a question. I'm sorry about the calendar. When I'm in this case manager, when I open this up, this calendar that I'm seeing right now, will it be just the items of things that are pending for me, or would it be for everyone in my office that I will see there as an item?
Sure. So as an admin, when you first log in, again, the default is that you're probably going to see everything. And you can change that with this display. So when you first log in, right, the default is it will show you everything, every case, every meeting that's going on. But then you can filter that just by clicking on your name, and then it will just show you your calendar. What's nice is you can also filter that by rooms. So for instance, if you wanted to see the availability of a room, then you would just click on that, and it will show you the calendar schedule for that room.
Thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Perfect, yeah. And so right now, of course, we're just seeing 1 item, 2 items. If you ever want more information on that, you can just hover over it, and then you'll see this mouse over, or you can click on it, and then you'll get more details. From there, again, you've got the same options. You can filter what you're seeing, you can select what fields you're seeing, and you can export it if you wanted to export these calendar items out to your desktop or to a Google Calendar. Again, I'm only teasing you with that information because that's something we can talk about in more detail at the face-to-face training. We recommend just using this calendar, but if you do need to export your calendar items out, here's how you would do that, by clicking this export link in the upper right. Okay. And
just as you're closing out of that, Claire, for folks, just as we're thinking kind of going forward, you can use, can you open up that day view again, please, Claire, of the calendar? So you can, this is another way you can do your, because I know for many of you, the next action function is so critical in helping you manage your work. This is, if you use activities and calendar items, this is another way that you can create essentially a next action list for every day into the future, and it'll look like this, and you'll choose what shows up. You'll be able to use this, or you'll be able to use the the case list that we went through, that kind of dashboardy thing. And folks will have to make kind of a strategic operational decision about how they want to enter information. And that based on the number of people in your office, based on the number of counties that people are doing casework in, you may choose one option or the other. There's no right answer, and we'll be talking about that together at the Superuser training so you can make those decisions.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, I've missed one question here. Begin using Caseload Manager on July 1, and I believe the answer is yes, right? That the assumption is that people need to begin using it on July 1st.
I'm sorry, I had my phone on mute. Yes. So and maybe we're at that point. I'm thinking, Claire, I'm looking at the time, and it's 11:40 here in the East Coast. So maybe we could spend the next 5 minutes just kind of wrapping up on next steps. Is that all right with you?
Sure, of course. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yes. At the Superuser training, you'll each have your own version of the database. And the way that it works is that you all have some fields that are in common, and then you'll all have basically some fields that you can customize and change. And we'll walk through all of that at the user training. So starting on the 28th and 29th, when we're together, you'll be working on your own version. And that's when you can start entering information for custom fields and for mediators and that sort of thing. July 1 is when we would like people to begin entering case data. Now, if your basic user training is not till after July 1, we'd probably ask you to wait to enter case information until everyone's been kind of trained. So that's the system. You'll actually have a live version a few days before July 1. As part of the transition, what I want folks to kind of keep in mind, and every center has a different kind of throughput, so you have different ways of managing this piece of it. We're going to do one last transfer out of DRCMS in July. And what we need folks to do is to get to a point where every case that was complete as of June 30th, that it gets entered and closed in DRCMS. And any case that's opened, say a case you opened this week, but it's not going to close until July, those cases will all need to be re-entered into the new system. So any open cases as of July 1st will all need to be re-entered. And so those might be the cases that you have people practice on as they get used to the system and entering those cases into the new system. So for some of you, this means that you'll have some re-entering to do. Some of you may choose to stop using DRCMS for new cases that won't be closed as of June 30th. And to just kind of hold those cases on paper and then just enter them once into the new system. But I just want to kind of give you a preview of how that transition is going to work so that you can kind of manage it the way that's best for your center. Are there any questions on that? Okay, so one thing we are working to do, and it may not quite be there for the date for the super users, but we're very much working hard to make sure it's there for the launch, is some basic mediator information is going to be imported into your system. And it really depends on how much of it you've entered in the past and what we have available through the DRCMS transfers. Our goal is to have everyone have some mediator information in their system as of July 1, if not sooner. So we are working towards that. That said, you should be planning to enter additional information on your mediators and to double check all that information. And again, some of you have smaller panels, some of you have larger panels, so it could be a bigger job, but that's something that we're looking to do. So I think the last part in the last couple of minutes here is just to make sure you kind of have a sense of what we hope that you can at least start thinking about or doing over the next few days before we meet in person next week. So the first thing we'd like you to do is, to log into the system, and it looks like Claire is going to be sending that information out through the system if you don't already have that. So that information should get out to you. And when you get that, what we'd ask you to do is to go into the system and just enter a case and kind of play around a little bit with it. You can't do any damage to it right now because we are working on a kind of a test version. And so there's already some, data in there, and we're just going to ask you to kind of, work with it a little bit so that when we get together, you can ask questions and we can see what's come up for you as you've been using the system. And Claire here has kind of an introductory exercise on the screen where you can add a case, an activity, and calendar item, and close the case out. So just to kind of get your feet wet. If you have questions, take note of them. That way we can talk about them when we get together. So that's number one. Enter 2 or 3 cases, see how it feels. The other thing I'd like folks to think about is many of the fields are customizable. Claire, could you open up a case real quick? Many of the fields are customizable, and so, for instance, if you look at this field called case status, once it comes up on the right, all right, this whole list is just a default set of values. You'll be able to change those to any values you want. Some of you have also taken fields in DRCMS and kind of repurposed them to track for a particular grant, or maybe, I know some of you have even had some custom programming done, and you have various modules that track certain things. Like I know in Dutchess County, they track some of their process related to intake and screening in a special way. Any fields that you enter information into DRCMS and that you've kind of repurposed, I'd ask you to start a list of those, because that'll be one of the ways we can start to do the customizing process when we get together. And then the last thing on my list is just to kind of think through how you want to handle the transition in terms of cases that are open, whether you're going to enter them into DRCMS or just hold them on paper and enter them when the new system comes live. Am I missing anything, Claire, for homework?
I don't think so. I just want to make sure I captured what you just said there. So
okay.
Make a list.
Make a list of custom fields.
Custom fields. Mm-hmm.
And then the last was, how do you want to manage how do you want to manage the transition with cases that aren't going to close before the end of June?
Perfect. Okay. All right, that sounds good.
So I know we're at time, but if we can just take a minute or two, are there any questions on kind of next steps or logistical questions about next week? Okay, and I'm not hearing any right now, and that's fine. If folks have them, you can email me, and I'll get back to you about it. Everyone should have received a confirmation of the location and the times and everything for next week. Again, if you have questions about that, let me know. And then just a final note is that for sure, if you signed up and indicated that you could bring a laptop, please bring it. We'll only have a handful of extra ones for folks who weren't able to bring one, and we have those secured now. So if your status on a laptop changes, you thought you might have access to it and now you don't, let me know so I can make sure that you have one there. But we're really looking forward to launching this, and I'm excited to spend a couple days with you all to figure out exactly how best to harness the system. So thanks for making time. Claire, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you again for taking time this morning. As we're going along, please feel free to contact me. So hopefully this stuff should become really, really foundational and grounded over the next few weeks. But again, as we're going through, if you have any questions, please email me or call me. I'm happy to answer your questions. And other than that, looking forward to speaking with you again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.